Alright guys, so this week we're going to be talking about shutter speed. So let's go inside and we'll get started. Alright, so we're inside, and the first thing you're probably wondering is, what is shutter speed? And simply, it's the amount of time that the shutter is open. So if you take off the lens, you can see the mirror in there. That's what that shiny thing is. And if I go ahead and put this in the manual so I can... as you can see, that flap is your shutter, and the shutter speed is the amount of time that it takes for it to open and close. So if I go to a relatively fast shutter speed, which that's 1/1000th of a second, it's very fast, as you can see. And also, if you go very slow, we'll go to 2.5 seconds, you'll see that it's very slow. So that is basically your shutter speed. Now, when you're on the back of the camera, whoops, let's get the lens on there. When you're on the back of the camera, this is shown, shutter speed is shown as a fraction, and so as you can see, it's a fraction. So that fraction is your shutter speed, and it is measured in seconds. So this is 1/4 of a second, and also, you know, this is 1 or 2 seconds. So that's how it's measured. It's very simple and very easy. So let's go ahead and go outside, and I'll show you how a fast shutter speed compares to a slow shutter speed, and how that will affect your photos. So now that you know what shutter speed is and how it works, I'm going to show you how using it will actually affect some of your photos. And one of the best ways, I think, is to use water and moving water, because it'll really show what the shutter speed does to your photos. So I'm out here at the fountain, and I'm going to go ahead and take some pictures and show you how it affects your photos. So when you use a slower shutter speed, the sensor is open for a lot longer, which lets your moving subjects blur, and oftentimes this isn't what you want. You want it to freeze the action so you can get everything in focus and get everything sharp. So when photographing your subject, oftentimes you want to use a faster shutter speed so that you can freeze what they're doing and get them in focus and get them sharp. And the way to do this is to use a faster shutter speed. So I am going to go shoot this fountain at, let's say, let's start at 1/800th of a second, which is pretty fast, and that'll freeze almost every motion, unless something is going extremely, extremely fast. But everything that you'll most likely be shooting will be frozen with a 1/800th of a second shutter. And I'm shooting in shutter priority, which will let you control the shutter, but the camera will do everything else, so it's very easy to learn. So as you can see from this picture, the water is frozen and sharp. And this is normally what you would want for your subjects, because you don't want there to be any kind of blur, because it would detract from what you're trying to take a picture of. Now, in certain cases, you want to use a slower shutter speed, because it'll give you some cool effects, and this is something that you might want to go for every once in a while. Now, the #1 rule is that when you're shooting with slow shutter speeds, you need to have a tripod. And right now, I'm shooting this video on my tripod, so I'm not going to demonstrate me taking the photo, but right now you should see one popping up, and this is a picture with a slow shutter speed. Now, as you can see, the water is nice and flowy, almost looks like steam, and this is because the shutter is open for much longer, which lets the motion of the water flow over, and it just gives it this nice steamy effect. Now, if you're shooting a picture of a person or something, now this is going to give you a problem, because the person is not going to be sharp, and you're not going to see any part of them in focus, and this is usually a problem. Of course, there's always exceptions, but normally slow shutter speeds will be for something like water, or if you're going to do some stylized effect, which I'll do a video on later. So as you can see from these two pictures, using a faster shutter speed will stop the motion and give you a nice crisp image, and using a slower shutter speed on a tripod will give you nice flowy motion, especially with water. And you want to remember that when you're shooting your subject, you want to have a fast enough shutter to freeze the motion, unless you are specifically trying to blur them out. So I want to leave you guys with one last tip, and that is that you do not want to shoot below the reciprocal of your lens length. So I'm shooting with a 35mm, and so that would mean I don't want to shoot below usually 1/40th of a second, because after that you would get blur. So that's just a really simple technique to remember, and if you shoot above the reciprocal of your lens length, then you should be fine and you should get sharp images. So that's about it for this week's video. Next week we'll talk about ISO, and then we'll go ahead and get into exposure overall after that. Check out some of my other videos and subscribe. That would be awesome. Leave some comments. Let me know what you guys like and what you guys don't like. Follow me on Twitter at Gonzo3303. Add me to your circles on Google+. I'll add you back. And follow me on Facebook. That'll all be down below in the description box. So I'll see you guys next week. Bye.